From the CBS Bay Area studios, this is KPIX 5 News.
Welcome back to KPIX 5 this morning. Time now 6:29. I'm Melissa Kane.
Good morning. I'm Devin Fehely. A Bay Area teenager and her mom were hit by a car while walking their dog. It happened around 6 o'clock last night here in San Francisco on John Muir Drive near Lake Merced. Police say a black Mercedes struck them both. The 14-year-old was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. The mother was also taken to the hospital but is expected to survive. A man who lives nearby told us that it's a dangerous street.
It's a big problem here, like people driving high speed, like more than freeway. It's not safe for everyone, you know.
The driver stopped and is cooperating with police. They told us that the sun may have momentarily blinded that driver. And not too far away, a San Francisco State student was hit by a car while crossing 19th Avenue. Campus police say that they couldn't respond because they were dealing with a series of false fire alarms. Anyone with information is being asked to come forward.
And this morning, Stanford University confirms there is now a third Stanford student linked to that nationwide college admissions scandal. Now, a prosecutor says that the student got into Stanford partly due to, quote, fabricated sailing credentials. Now, Stanford says that person, who is currently enrolled, has no affiliation with the sailing program. Now, two other applicants implicated in a phony recruitment scheme ended up attending other colleges. And that scandal is now touching UC Berkeley as well. Prosecutors there say Canadian businessman David Sidhu paid $200,000 for a stand-in to take his son's SAT tests. Now, one of his sons went on to Cal and has since graduated. Now, Sidhu appeared in court in Boston yesterday, where he pleaded not guilty to mail and wire fraud charges. And one last note, actress Lori Loughlin, who was also arrested in this scandal, has now been dropped from that Netflix series Fuller House.
Young activists across the country are calling on others to step up and take action against climate change. Thousands of students in the Bay Area skipped school yesterday to march down Market Street in San Francisco. There were also rallies in Berkeley and Alameda. Many students say politicians are just dragging their feet. The kids also worry that they are not being heard.
When we were trying to organize people and we were telling people, come to the march, they were always saying, like, the most common response I got was, who's going to listen to us? We're just students. We can't even vote. What difference can we make? And I want to tell people that you don't have to feel hopeless. You don't have to feel like just because you're young, you can't make a difference. We have a voice. Our voice matters.
Yesterday's rallies were part of a global youth climate strike with rallies and school walkouts in about 75 countries.
And the Presidio is now mulling over a new proposal to turn historic Fort Scott into a state-of-the-art campus for change. The World Economic Forum and other nonprofits want to build a mixed-use space with offices and public parks there. The 30-acre fort sits at the foot of the Golden Gate Bridge, and public comments on the proposal will be heard at meetings in April and May.
Some people in a San Jose neighborhood keep getting jolted awake in the middle of the night. It's because freight trains now run through that area 24 hours a day, blaring their horns. Union Pacific has a long history in Japantown. The neighborhood used to be filled with canneries that ship fruit all over the country, but now those properties have been turned into stylish apartments. But the train tracks are still there, and recently Union Pacific changed its schedule. Trains now run around the clock.
It's been every night at 3 a.m. and so I have had a wake-up call at 3 a.m. every night for the past couple of weeks, I want to say now. Yeah.
Union Pacific says the railroad does have a new operating plan, including schedule changes. It also says that the train crews are required by law to blow their horns as they approach crossings. A new study points to evidence that links eggs to heart disease. The study looked at people who eat eggs daily and compared them to those who don't. Those who ate 1.5 more eggs had a slightly higher risk of heart disease. Now, researchers are pointing to cholesterol in egg yolks as the culprit. The study was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association.
A look at Christchurch, New Zealand, where people have been placing flowers to honor the victims of one of the largest mass shootings in history. At least 49 people were killed at 2 mosques. One man now charged with the murder and after that shooting rampage at the 2 New Zealand mosques. The Australian-born suspect did not enter a plea, but he was ordered to return to court next month. The judge ordered that any photos of the suspect be pixelated to obscure his image. That's what you see everywhere. Now, 2 alleged accomplices were also implicated. None of them had criminal records in Australia or New Zealand, and none of them were on security watch lists. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is vowing to take action.
I can tell you one thing right now. Our gun laws will change.
Now, the shooter did live stream images of the attack online, and in a manifesto released online before the attacks, the gunman promised to kill Muslims, quote, directly reduce immigration rates and deepen strife in the U.S. over gun ownership. Now, in addition to those killed yesterday, dozens of others are injured. Now, for the latest updates on the New Zealand mosque shootings and for information on memorials in the Bay Area, go to KPIX.com.
When people are getting attacked in their own
An elected official from nearby Australia was smacked with an egg at a news conference, as you saw there, after releasing a controversial statement about the New Zealand shootings. Senator Fraser Anning, who has a history of racially charged comments, blamed the bloodshed on a, quote, immigration program which allowed Muslim fanatics to migrate to New Zealand. There is now an effort underway to get Anning removed from Parliament.
And President Trump just issued his first veto, overruling Congress to protect his emergency border barrier funding. Now, law enforcement officials were with the president in the Oval Office when he signed it. Now, this veto comes just 2 days after a dozen Republicans joined Democrats to reject the emergency declaration at the southern border.
We have many miles under construction right now.
This, for me, is a matter of defending the Constitution and the balance of powers that is core to our Constitution.
Trump's emergency declaration now allows him to use billions of dollars in Pentagon funding to build barriers on the border. It would take 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate to overturn that veto.
And just days after President Trump grounded the entire U.S. fleet of Boeing MAX jets, an American Airlines MAX 8 touched down in San Francisco airport yesterday. There were no passengers on board, just the crew bringing the plane over from Miami, Florida, from a long-term parking. The plane has prompted worldwide safety concerns after 2 deadly crashes in 6 months. Now, meanwhile, evidence is emerging of a possible connection between the 2 aviation disasters. The New York Times is reporting that investigators found the stabilizers in an Ethiopian jetliner that crashed last week were pointed up, which would have forced the nose of the plane down. The same issue is being investigated in a crash of a Lion Air flight last year. Everyone on both of those flights died in those crashes.
Now, some victims of violent crime are now speaking out against Governor Gavin Newsom, who recently put all executions on hold. Newsom defended his position on CBS this morning, calling the death penalty racist. He says capital punishment disproportionately affects people of color.
It's a racist system. You cannot deny that. There's no equal justice in this system. It's a system that is perpetuating inequality. It's a system that I cannot, in good conscience, support.
Today in San Jose, a community volunteer day to help clean up Coyote Creek. It'll take place from 9 this morning until noon. Volunteers are asked to meet up at the ball fields adjacent to the Tully Branch Library. Mayor Sam Liccardo will be there amongst the volunteers. He decided to pass this year on the annual State of the City address in favor of taking part in a series of volunteer events. Crews are getting back to cleaning up the remains of the campfire in Butte County. They were forced to stop during the severe wet weather that hit the region. Officials are sending out 80 teams to begin that work. Cal Recycle says crews have already assessed nearly 6,000 sites for debris removal.
And we have an update now on the stabbing case of Nia Wilson. An Alameda County judge scheduled the next in-court appearance for her suspected killer. John Lee Cowell will appear at the Superior Courthouse on April 5th, and that's when a judge will rule on the mental competency of the 27-year-old suspect. Now, Cowell is accused of stabbing Wilson in the throat last July on the MacArthur BART station platform. A trial date will be set during this coming hearing.
Memorial events are planned this weekend in Sacramento to mark 1 year since the officer-involved shooting death of Stephon Clark. Clark was killed last year after police approached him while responding to reports of vandalism. At one point in the dark of night, officers mistook Clark's cell phone for a gun and opened fire. Now, earlier this month, the district attorney determined that the officer should not face criminal charges, and that upset members of the community.
We want justice! Yes, we do!
Demonstrators marched to the state capitol yesterday. Other events are planned throughout the weekend.
And all you A's fans, forget peanuts and Cracker Jacks. The Oakland A's Coliseum has a brand new menu. First up, we have booze-filled popsicles called Party Pops that will be delivered on tricycles. Then there's something called a beer cycle, serving up craft beer on wheels. The Nourish Farm Stand has got you covered if you want to build your own salad or quinoa bowl while you watch the game. Then there's also boba tea and a test kitchen with a revolving door of chefs. How about that?
The Bay Area will soon be swarmed with painted ladies. They're an orange and black butterfly, often confused with monarchs. The painted ladies are in Southern California right now in the wildflower super bloom. They could pass through our area any day now as they migrate north.
And it looked like a scene out of Northern Exposure. A moose crashing into a Colorado home. This happened yesterday in Breckenridge. Wildlife experts think that the moose had been walking around outside the house in the deep snow when it fell through a basement window. And the moose landed in a bedroom where a baby was sleeping.
I just see this big figure and I hear lots of noise and I'm screaming a lot.
Now, the moose is okay. It was tranquilized and removed, later relocated to an area away from homes.
Think this is going to be the weekend you notice a lot more people out and about, and if you don't already have that plan, maybe you might want to start thinking about doing that. Warmest weather since early November, sunny and warm through Monday, and then there is a chance of rain by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. You can see it show up there, but I don't want you to get too impressed with that, because I'm not. And I'm going to watch it real closely and might even be able to adjust that forecast a little by tomorrow. Maybe even Brian will have an update when he checks in later tonight for the evening newscast. That threat for rain looked more impressive yesterday, and now it's starting to kind of fall apart, and let's hope it keeps doing that. And then by the end of next week, whatever happens with Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to be sunny and we'll warm back up again heading into next weekend.
It looks like a great weekend for St. Patrick's Day festivities.
Yes. Yeah.
Going to be great.
Well, it's time for us to call it a morning. Thank you for watching KPIX News this morning.